then on Friday there will be an exercise related to search engine optimization. And yeah, like as I mentioned last week, please try to follow the materials every week regularly, to have a routine, to read the article and to watch the practitioner videos in addition to either attending or watching the recording of this lecture. So that way you will learn progressively and stay sort of updated, and when you're preparing for the exam you won't have too much material ahead of you. Okay, so without further ado, let's go into this topic. So I was looking at my first slides. I thought for the first time about SEO in 2012, and I found this definition from Wikipedia, and it's still valid. So it turns out a lot of what we knew, or what formed the foundation of SEO back then, is still applicable. So for example, the basic and the core of SEO hasn't changed. So basically our goal is to improve the visibility of a website or a specific web page in search engines, and these are called the natural, or more commonly known as the organic search results, which are unpaid. So these are the natural results that are showing up in the Google, for example, most classically in Google search results page. And yeah, so we want to improve our ranking on specific keywords, and those keywords represent searches by our potential customers. So in different industries, we have different keywords that we want to target, and yeah, keyword matching is matching the concept of search query. So a user types into the search engine, so that's called query, and then when we try to understand that query as marketers, we speak of search terms or search keywords. So a term could be several words, multiple words, and a keyword, well, those are often used interchangeably, but technically keyword would be just one word and search term could be several words. And yeah, we have some information from Google about the search keywords that people use when they enter our website, and there are also some other tools to do general investigation on what search terms are frequently used by people in specific locations of the world. Especially Google Trends is one such tool that is very helpful. Unfortunately, over the years, back in 2012, we knew much more, because Google would release to website owners more information about keywords that people use when they land on the website. But at some point, Google decided to hide a lot of that information. That's already several years ago, perhaps 7 years or more ago. So we lost a lot of the information that Google was giving us for free. And well, now if we are running paid Google Ads campaigns, we are getting more information, but that applies to the paid keywords and not to the organic ones. So we still can get some through tool called Search Console. So Google Search Console, it used to be called Webmaster Tools. Now it's called Search Console, and it has some information on keywords, but it's limited, more limited, and has less information than previously. So Yeah, so what is this about? We have some kind of tools and tactics that we use so we can edit the content, the text content of the web page. Well, we can actually edit pretty much everything. We can edit the structure, the speed, how quickly the website loads, how user-friendly it is. Those kind of factors also affect in our rankings. But anyway, we can edit the text through the content management system our website is built on. So content management system would be, for example, WordPress or something similar. We have open source systems for websites, and then companies may also have custom built systems. So they have their own content management systems where you usually log in as a worker, and then you can edit the web pages by writing writing text basically. And some of those editors, those text editors, give you also access to HTML. So HTML is the markup language that basically forms the website, or websites are created using HTML, so hypertext markup language, which the browser then renders. So HTML deals with the content, the structure of the website, but then we have things like CSS that affects how the website looks like, and also JavaScript affects how it looks like. But in terms of information and content, HTML is central. So if you, for example, bold something or you add italics to your text, it's done through HTML. And it's if you add links are inserted using HTML. Links are very important for SEO. So basically, editors usually have these, bold buttons and add link buttons. So it's what you would, what is called what you see is what you get type of editors that are easy to use. But some of them also give you access to edit the code. So for example, me, when I learned SEO and did SEO, I learned some basic HTML, and it was helpful for editing some parts of the code, and to make the text look like I wanted and have the emphasis that I wanted. Google is looking at the website through HTML. It's reading the source code. So the source code of the website is HTML. Google is, of course, not seeing the website because it has a Google bot that is accessing the source code, and it's looking at the HTML. So sometimes HTML can be poorly structured or contain some like non-optimal choices, and then it can be more difficult for the bot also to index your website. So that's why a basic understanding of HTML and things like the heading tags, structure, the link tags, different forms of them, anchor text, and so on can sort of be useful even nowadays in 2024, because websites are still rendered in HTML. So yeah, indexing activities. So as I mentioned, Googlebot is indexing, and Google is following links. So from one web page to another, these crawlers are crawling the web. Basically, they're following links. And links have a big importance also because they are a ranking factor. We'll talk about it in the upcoming slides, but so this backlink means that it's a link linking to your website, and basically the idea is the more links you have linking to your website, the better. And yeah, these are also called inbound links. And yeah, in addition to this HTML edits, we in SEO we want to somehow collect and increase linking to the web pages that we want to optimize, and the ones we want to optimize are the ones that have the highest commercial value, because people are searching for our products using using those keywords in using those keywords corresponding to the products or services that we're offering. So that's a rationale for selecting the keywords. So some basic terminology. So SEM, search engine marketing, and search engine marketing includes SEO and search engine advertising, or SEA. And some people make a distinction. So if you see a slightly different version of this, which is that SEM is the paid form of SEO. Some people use that for some reason, but the original and, in my opinion, correct one is just to say that you have SEM, which is search engine marketing, and that has an organic component, which is the SEO, and the paid component, which is the SEA. So this is the original one. But nowadays, I don't know, for whatever reason, people call this SEA, SEM, and it's somewhat confusing. Some people do that. All right, so SEO, traditionally we divide it into two subfields, so on-page optimization and off-page optimization. So on-page optimization are the things that we can do on the website. So in the previous slide, I talked about editing the HTML, editing the content. A lot of SEO nowadays deals with writing, so we call it SEO copywriting, writing content, basically. So those kind of things we can do. We can improve linking, internal linking, navigation. We can improve speed. Speed is a ranking factor. We can make the website more friendly for different devices. Mobile friendliness is important. So responsive design, how it's called when you change the size of the browser window and the elements move and reorganize. That's called responsive design, and it's a usability best practice. So those type of things we can do on the website to improve the website are part of on-page optimization. And then off-page optimization are things that we can do outside the website. And yeah, it mainly refers to we can upload our page map to Google or other directories. Usually Google, it's good to have a page map. So page map lists all the individual pages in our domain. So an important concept, maybe, domain is the overall website. So for example, we could have verkkokauppa.com or amazon.com. That's a domain. And then that domain has individual web pages. So when we talk about ranking, the website and web page are two different things. The website refers to the domain, and then the web pages refer to the individual web pages. So, for example, this e-commerce site might want to increase the ranking of specific product category pages, like shoes, for example, like men's shoes for some reason. So that they have a page for that, and it's a category page, and they want to increase its ranking. So the overall domains have domain authority or some kind of general reputation in Google's eyes, and then some of that affects also the all the individual pages of the website. But yeah, that's the important distinction, that website and web page are different things. I might ask about it in the exam. Let's see. So anyway, and then links, as mentioned, is important. I'll come back to that after a while. And going forward, so we have SERP, so search engine results page, and that one is traditionally also divided into two sections. So we have sponsored results and organic results. as I already mentioned in earlier, so sponsored results are the paid results, and the tool or tactic how us marketers affect it is the search engine advertising. So in practice, Google has, for example, Google Ads. Microsoft has Bing Ads, which is a copy of Google Ads, and other search engines in the world like Yandex in Russia and Baidu in China also have similar systems that are kind of more or less copied from Google, because Google originally invented this search engine advertising, and their first name of the system was called Google AdWords, and it was based on text ads, which are still the biggest part of the um, search engine advertising as far as I know. And later it expanded to other media as well. Google bought YouTube and so on and integrated those into the platform. So the name changed from Google AdWords to Google Ads. But anyway, if you want to run paid ads in Google, you are using Google Ads, and it's an easy tool to get started with. Organic results can be influenced by SEO, and then we also I briefly mentioned the Google bot. So this is Google's crawler, or also known as spider, and it follows the links on websites to find new web pages, and it adds their content, so the text, and yeah, I don't know exactly. I guess nobody exactly knows except those working in Google what it adds, but it adds probably parts of the source code and maybe the whole content or a snapshot of it into Google's index, which is the database that has all the information. Remember that Google's mission is to organize world's information. So as everything went digital, and we had millions and millions and eventually billions of web pages, Google is trying to organize and index all of them and make the information in them quickly available to everyone in the world, anywhere, in milliseconds. And it is able to do that, which is quite amazing engineering miracle that we have this kind of system. And that's why Google is still the number one, because it's managed to do something that's very, very difficult to do. And how is SEO related to other subfields of digital marketing? Well, the content marketing is most connected with SEO. And in fact, there are people that think of content marketing as one instrument of SEO, meaning that content marketing exists to create content that has keywords we want to rank on, and then Google will index that content and we will have higher rankings. So some companies only have blogs or only have some, usually blogs as their sort of content marketing tactic, because they want to please the search engines by generating content that's relevant to their industry, and therefore try to bring that kind of prominence, and they want to be profiled as sort of a content hub for a specific industry, and then that's the idea of their content creation activities. There are other ways of seeing content marketing as well, so that content has its value in itself, and actually we are not just writing for search engines, but actually to people, and we should write things that people care about and get visits for the content. But I'm just mentioning this mindset that people have about content marketing, especially those that are SEO specialists. They really see it as just something that we need to do to produce keyword compatible content that Google can index. That's the narrow way of seeing content marketing. And then SEO and social media, that one is the relationship is a little bit tricky in the sense that we had around 10 years ago, there was a lot of buzz around this concept of social signals. So at the time, Google had social media platform called Google Plus. I bet almost none of you have heard about it because uh, they buried it basically, but they wanted to challenge Facebook. And at the time, there was a lot of talk about those Google Plus mentions and Google trying to consider this social media as a ranking factor. But once Google Plus discontinued, then this idea of social signals also somewhat disappeared. And the idea is that reason is that these social media platforms, they tend to be walled gardens. So walled garden means that Googlebot cannot index Facebook. It cannot index your profile pages because your profile pages are not publicly available. It cannot index your posts. So a lot of the content creation now taking place in social media is hidden for search engines. And that's why Google wanted to challenge this using their own platform so they would have understanding of, different trends and phenomena on people's behavior, because that, of course, matters a lot for something like search. But yeah, because these social media platforms are sort of private and protected, then they are really different from SEO, and they are not considered like the connection is not clear. They are two very different things and different strategies. So SEO people consider social media as something really separate and not integral to what they are doing. In contrast, SEO and analytics are very close. So SEO is considered one of the most technical subfields of digital marketing. It's because of SEO tactics, and basically the understanding of SEO requires some kind of technical knowledge. And the deeper you go into the more technical expertise you need to have when you start going into the speed things and how web pages are rendered, and you have different waterfall diagrams and dependencies and APIs and more complex and advanced things that affect how the website is basically forming, and how those factors then affect the ranking. So it can go a bit complex, but even without going into the very hardcore programming of websites, even if we just optimize for keywords and traffic, we still need to measure the performance, right? So we need to have some kind of expertise in analytics. What metrics are we looking at? How do we quantify our success with SEO? It's very hard because we usually do a lot of changes, but we don't know exactly, we don't know precisely what change affected our traffic and by how much. Like only on very rare exceptions, when we do something very big and we change something very drastically, and then we can observe some change, we can draw this inference that probably it was because of we did and this and that. But once the basics have been done and the SEO is sort of running now, when we do more minor interventions and changes, their impact is really difficult to discern from the data. But nonetheless, we often then track the overall organic traffic from tools like Google Analytics. and we might track it comparing it to previous months, previous quarter, or previous year. So often we have this year to year um, or year on year comparison. So we compare to the, for example, September 2023 and see how much uh, change we have if we had growth compared to that period this year. And yeah, I mentioned Google Search Console, which is like a must tool for search engine optimizers. And then another very common and popular one is SEMrush. So they have their own indexing system. Google Search Console is more reliable, of course, because it uses primary data from Google. The SEMrush is somehow trying to simulate Google data by having its own crawlers track the. So in SEMrush, you can select certain keywords to follow, and it tries to follow your ranking positions over time. Those keywords you can have, for example, 20 top keywords or any number, and then you do something to try and increase the ranking of those keywords, and then you can observe that next month that was there any growth, and again the next month. So but that information is based on how SEMrush is obtaining the rankings for those specific keywords. But even though it might not be perfectly accurate, it's still popular and kind of useful tool because we need to have some kind of numbers to make inferences. How to think about SEO is a good way is that it's about understanding two things. So search engines, so all this technical stuff, how they work, and trying to figure out how I can change my website to accommodate search engines better. Need to be compliant with what is easy to navigate and so on. So we need to understand what ranking factors there are. We need to understand search engines, how they work, but we also need to understand users. So that's the other part. We need to understand user behavior. So when people are searching, what type of keywords are they using? What keywords are relevant to our business, and how do we prioritize those? So we have some keywords that are very, very top, very, very most valuable, and then some keywords that are less valuable. So we need to be able to prioritize and focus, and also we need to know about competition, because some of those generic and very valuable ones are very competed keywords, and it might be harder to establish a top position on them, because once some web page is ranking very high, it might be hard to sort of overthrow it. And that doesn't mean, of course, that the search rankings don't change. They do, but they don't change like drastically overnight. And definitely, of course, all SEO people are doing more or less similar things. So it's harder to get super gains over someone who has optimized already to Google's #1 position. So they have already done the things that you are probably trying to do. So that's why we need to sometimes diversify our keywords and look for keywords with less competition. And this concept, I had a friend back in 2009, and he was into SEO a lot, and his name was Viet, or is Viet, and he lives in Helsinki nowadays. But yeah, we were on a cruise going to Good Morning Stockholm, which is a startup event, and yeah, he's talked to me about this UFO. He was really he really liked the concept, and it stuck to me because he was very passionate about it. So user-friendly optimization, and it's actually very simple. It's just, you know, what is good for users is good for Google. So this is somewhat golden rule for SEO. So whatever you do, if it improves the user experience, generally it's compatible with good engine optimization practices, right? Because that's what Google is all about. They want to present useful search results to people searching. And if you click on a link in Google and you end up in a good website with good usability, the information you're looking for, Google has succeeded in its mission. But if it directs people into poor websites with the wrong information, with poor usability, you see the point, right? Then Google is not doing well. Then people will not use Google anymore. They would use some other search engine. And that's why user experience is the key design guideline for Google. And therefore, if you also follow that this guideline, you are doing the right thing. So all of our interests are aligned. It's a win-win-win for the user, for Google, and also for us as a website. So that's why this UFO concept is very a fundamental, like I said, a golden rule for SEO. Okay, then why do we want to rank at the top? There's basically this um, there 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 is a lot of research on how click through rates, and in this graph, this is the share of Google traffic drops when we have positions dropping. So this is the first position. So in this study that had something like 8 million impressions, the first rank, the top first search result got 35% of the clicks. So more than a third. And you can see this share of clicks drops quite drastically. So after, after fifth position, we're going already below 5% in our shares. And that's quite small, right? Because you scroll down and it's quite quickly reach the fifth position. So people generally really prefer clicking the first position. It's called position bias. So that's why we want to have the top rank for important keywords in Google, because really the drop is drastic even between the first and second position. And yeah, if we get to position 10, which is already quite good, imagine it we have like, there are millions of web pages that could be ranking on the same keyword, and we are in the top 10. But if we are at 10 versus at 1, it's like a huge difference. So just an improvement of a few positions will increase our searches, our traffic by a lot, right? Because we might, in some niches and in some markets, we might deal with millions of searches coming. So if you have a 10 percentage point increase in the click-through rate, that can mean thousands of more users, and again thousands of more revenue basically coming from organic traffic. So that's why even relatively small improvements in the top 10 rankings can affect your revenue quite a bit. There's also, of course, this click-through rate is affected by how you look in the SERP. So if you're doing search engine optimization, you should Google yourself and look at the search results. Google is using your page title tags, your meta descriptions, and your actual content, and also some pictures that you might have to create a representation of your page on the search engine results page. So SERP optimization is also one thing that you might want to improve your title so that it's more appealing and people are more willing to click it. So it's not always that, third versus fourth, that the fourth position loses. Like if you have a stronger call to action there than the page ranking third, then people might actually click on you rather than third. People are not robots. They are also reading, they're skimming very quickly the results. So, but then over time, Google might actually push you up to the third position because they notice you get higher click-through rate in the SERP. So the SERP optimization matters as well. And yeah, indeed, after there's this idea that if you're not on the first page in Google, you don't exist. So generally, that's why we wanted always get to the top 10 with the keywords, because yeah, for example, in this data set, it shows that after we go to the second page of Google, so from this 11 to 20, we're almost getting no clicks at all. So people generally browse the first results, and if they don't find something, they don't continue scrolling, but they do another search. So you need to get to the top 10. And there have been, so this is an eye tracking study. Eye tracking studies are tracking the eye fixations on some, for example, websites and the layouts. So we have these trackers that track, and based on the fixations, we can draw this type of heat maps where the darker color indicates more attention, more fixations from people. So this is an old study from the Nielsen, and it describes this F pattern, which is typical for in search engine result pages, but actually in any type of web content information processing. So it forms this kind of an F pattern, which means that people start from the top left and they read from left to right, and then they go down, and they read less and less when they go down. So it forms kind of this F pattern. And here is an example of the search engine results page with real data. So you can see the attention focuses very strongly on the first results. And that's how people skim and scan the web pages, really focusing on the top content. So there's an old concept from print, which is fold. So the newspaper folded. So the things that were above the fold were more important because people could see them without folding the newspaper, right? So below the fold was called less valuable. So this same concept applies in a way in websites, that when they don't have to scroll, that's above the fold, right? As soon as you have to scroll, you're going below the fold. So something is not immediately visible to you. So the more down we go in websites in general, the less attention we get. And yeah, again, this is also called Google's golden triangle because it forms sort of a triangle, the attention. And here is interesting. This is an old study, and Google used to have this layout where the sponsored results were on the right side here, and the organic results were on the left side. But yeah, you can see that Google monitors this kind of information behavior, and nowadays everything is they've shifted the page results to be on top here in the, let's say, the first column, so they get more prominence and therefore they get more clicks and Google gets more revenue. And yeah, this is an example how also, like previously, organic was competing with organic, but nowadays organic is also competing with sponsored links. So the paid ads, because they are shown nowadays, they are shown here, just in the first column. And Google is over the years, Google has increased the prominence of paid results. So really, previously they had they were in the corner, they had, you know, their own little section here. Nowadays, everything, especially in commercial searches, you have already huge product pictures appearing here, taking all the space that used to belong to the top organic results. And then after those, you have still sponsored links. So you have to a bit go down, not scroll necessarily, but you have to gaze below the sponsored section to get to the organic ones. So relatively speaking, organic SEO is kind of has this challenge of Google trying to direct more attention to the page results. So that's why it just means that as search engine marketers, we have to do both. We have to do the SEO and then we have to do the search engine advertising as well to maximize the traffic from search engines overall. And but SEO has some benefits over advertising. Here's one interesting example from an old article. So there was something top 10 mistakes of web design. So published in 1996, got 50,000 views. In 1997, got 72,000 views. 1998 got 150,000 views. Yeah, this is a missing number here, but it's 150,000 views and then 226,000 views and then almost 400,000 views in 2000. So it's increasing the benefit. Basically, you're creating one piece of content back in 96 and it's producing dividends for you, right? Because each year it's actually generating more and more traffic. So this is what we want with what we want to happen with search engine optimization. But it didn't happen because in this case because we had written the piece for search engines that we had nice keywords and all that. It happened because it's super interesting. Top 10 mistakes of web design by this person Nielsen, who is an expert in usability, world famous. So as more and more people try to find information about web design and usability, he had big authority on it in Google's eyes as well, and therefore the content he creates is like increasing of the. This is an outlier case. So in most of the situations, um, uh, growth doesn't happen so sharply, but it's nonetheless a good objective and it's good inspiring case in the sense that we want to create content that has value over time. So typically we talk about evergreen content, so content that's not relevant only this year but for many years to come. So if we are creating that kind of content, then that is more likely to give this dividend effect because people find it valuable over time. We can still update the content, and many people nowadays update their posts, and this is good. If you update content, it's good. It's a good best practice for SEO. So you can actually add content instead of creating all the time new posts. You can go to your old posts and add more content on them, expand on them. There's this principle or tactic that some search engine optimizers follow, which is called skyscraper content. So skyscrapers are very tall, right? So the idea is that we create very tall, very long pages that have a lot of subsections with heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 2, like it's structured in short paragraphs with clear subsections, but the whole article is very long. So if we had something like web design or usability in web design, it would basically list everything important. So it's almost like a book. It's almost like a book, but it's written just in more concise and easier to read in web interface way. So this strategy originated because some people observed that you can get higher positions in Google when you really make informative posts that have a lot of references, have a lot of facts, have a lot of information, have a lot of content. Then that is Google's algorithm is more likely to like that type of content. So yeah, generally, I sometimes refer to Google businesses, and the idea here is it's kind of interesting observation to me, especially for many small and medium-sized businesses and e-commerce sites. Uh, in my observation, in a lot of them, 2/3 of the traffic and also sales is coming from Google. And this, at least traditionally, has been sort of more or less evenly split between SEO and SEA, so organic and paid. But think of it like 67% of your revenue is coming from Google. That means, and a big chunk of it, so like something like a third of your revenue is coming from this organic, which is free in the sense that you're not paying for every click. It's not free in the sense that we have to make it happen and it costs money to do the optimization, but once it's done, we are not paying for each click. So it's a huge sort of subvention and enabling factor that Google affords for these small businesses. So many of them wouldn't exist because they would not be able to compete with the big brands that put a lot of that will basically buy all the advertising slots. Advertising is super expensive, and also in Google over the years, the click prices are all the time, of course, increasing. So these businesses are many of them Google businesses, and that's a good thing, and it's a good impact that Google has had on the society. But on the flip side, it means that there are a lot of companies and a lot of organizations, especially smaller ones, also bigger ones, by the way, bigger ones also gain and extract a lot of value from Google. So organizations across the board are pretty dependent on Google, and that's what I found very interesting in back when I was a master's student, and that's why I did my master's thesis on the power of Google. So still, if you Google power of Google and my last name, you will find that dissertation and sorry, the thesis, and it has a lot of valid ideas that are still yeah, still valid today about the relationship between Google, the advertisers, and also the publishers that are part of Google's advertising network. So studying this power dynamics is very interesting. Okay, so why is website ranking needed? And yeah, the answer is here. So for any type of query, let's say that men's shoes, there are millions of eligible websites, but like we saw that there that you have the 10 top positions that are clicked upon, and then the rest is ignored as you know in general principle. So then we have to now, as Google, make two decisions out of those, let's say 3 million possible websites that talk about men's shoes. How do we pick 10 most important ones, first of all? And secondly, how do we organize those? How do we make an order between those? Which one is the first, which one is second, and so on. So how would you do this? Valid, do you have any ideas? Are you there, Walid, still? Oh, I can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the question was why why is website ranking needed? Is it?
No, the question
So
is how do you choose the top 10 results from 3 million possible candidate results?
uh, yeah. um, well, it is I think based on the keywords that what we are like inquiring about what keywords we have input to and what results uh, uh, correspond to them, the top ones.
Yeah, so all 3 million websites mention men's shoes. So all of those mention men's shoes. How do you choose 10?
Yeah,
All of them have the keywords.
yeah. I think which is more like I think it. Well, I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm just trying to guess the answer. Um, the one which is like I think it has to do with the visibility thing, which comes on top. I don't know.
Good.
Yeah,
So yeah, nobody knows, right? This is very difficult problem. It's a difficult problem, information extraction problem, and ranking problem, and there's also a branch in computer science that's called recommender systems or recommenders, that is kind of dealing with this similar problem, because this problem emerges everywhere, right? If we are in Netflix and we give recommendations, we have possibly thousands of movies or series to recommend. So which ones do we put on top? The same, or a variation of this problem also exists in social media. So you are just seeing subset of the posts when you're scrolling Facebook or TikTok. Why are you seeing those specific ones at a specific point in time? Like you could have, if you have, 150 friends, which is the average number of friends according to the numbers number. Um, so then you might only see posts from 20 of them. So something like 10%. So why are you not seeing 100%? Because there's no space in your feed. So this problem exists everywhere. How do we extract the information that the person wants, and how do we rank it? How do we put it in order? So one of the approaches is what Valid mentions. This is like traditional view of search engines. So they look at the keywords in the text. They look at the keywords in the meta tags. So when the web got started, then these meta tags are something that we use in the source code to describe our website, right? We give it a title, HTML title, and we give it meta tags and meta keywords. So you can write for your own keywords. You can say, you can put their men's shoes, and that will be an indication that, okay, this website is about men's shoes. But then as the web grew, we had this problem that, okay, first of all, we cannot trust this information because people can just want to target popular keywords, and actually the content doesn't correspond to what they are describing it. So we have this dishonesty problem. But then we also have the problem that, okay, the web grew. It went from, 10 websites that were about men's shoes. It went to 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, and it's still growing. So now it's no longer enough for us to count the number of keywords. And also, if we do counting, then it results in what is known as keyword stuffing. So people will just put into their content men's shoes, men's shoes, men's shoes, men's shoes, repeated like 20 times, and it's not good, right? Again, because that's not compatible with user experience. As a user, I don't need to be reading men's shoes 20 times on the page when I'm looking for men's shoes. So that cannot obviously be a good ranking factor.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption. I mean, back to the past question, just one thing came to my mind that about that, I mean, sorting of those millions of pages and what we need according to them. So, what web crawling bots has to do with that? Is there any link that, okay, one way is that, okay, those we have those recommender systems when we put in that, and those recommender system put in all the things that we need. So, is there some link of web crawling bots also with that thing?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't quite understand.
Yes, my question is that the, I mean, past question was that there are like millions and millions of like websites, and how to choose based on what we needed. So one way is that I mean, keyword. So what I was thinking that when we use the keyword and something comes up on the Google search engines, so what is there any role of web crawling bots for that?
I'm not sure. I don't still understand the question. As I mentioned earlier, so Google indexes all the web mm, pages in its index. And when
Yeah.
it's showing the search result, it's pulling
Mhm.
these web pages from its index. And the indexing is done by Googlebot, which is a crawler.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yes. Thanks. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So then we went from this. So this early concept, this was prior to Google. So then came Google, and so Google's innovation is the links. So instead of using the meta tags or the number of times a keyword is mentioned in content, it would use links. So how many times a page is linked. So the more times a page about men's shoes is linked to by other pages, the higher it should be ranked, right? Because sort of links are like votes. So if one page is linked many times, then it's like showing that yeah, okay, a lot of other websites, a lot of other webmasters are who are building this website think that that's an important site because they're linking to it, right? So that was the idea, that we have this kind of link counting, and that can help us with the sorting problem. So what's the problem with this? The problem with this is that now anyone can set up a web page or a website, right? And anyone can just start setting up multiple websites and link to one men's shoes website that they want to drive up, right? So now we can create sort of these fake links that count as links, but they're coming from link farms, or otherwise set up domains that have no other purpose except increase the number of links. So you have this link inflation and gaming of the system, and therefore that doesn't really work. So what Google has or tried then to do is to categorize those links. So it's trying to distinguish between those links that are inauthentic and those that are authentic. So if you are buying links, it's not good. You might get penalized by Google. And if Google observes this kind of gaming behavior, it penalizes the website. So you will drop in rankings, and in some cases, you might even be removed from the index. So this is why these kind of gaming tactics are not okay. If you get those links, like organically, that people are linking to you because they find your products valuable, then in that case, that's okay. So Google's original innovation or solution to this problem was called PageRank, and it was published. So Google's founders are Larry Page and Sergey Brin, and they were doctoral students in Stanford University, and they published the paper describing, and it's still available online, the paper describing Google's algorithm. They published it in 1998, and it was not actually their like idea. So this is the beauty of academics, right? So somebody, of course, they didn't invent graph theory, and they didn't invent these computational concepts that are used in the PageRank algorithm. They just applied them in this new context. So they applied pre-existing ideas in like in a new concept to solve this computational problem of how to do the ranking of web pages. So the innovation here was that the both the quantity and the quality of the links matters. So each page basically has a value that represents its page rank value. It's also called authority, and then this value is sort of shared to other pages that this page is linking to. So it's distributed. And yeah, then as you run this kind of algorithm and you start observing data on actual web pages, you form this kind of graph, and then that helps you rank individual web pages. So the idea is sort of uh, let's say trailing the idea in academia, actually, when we have citations, right? Because citations are also criterion. When you have other authors, other researchers are citing your work, then it's considered that your work is more valuable. So this was the analogy that they had in mind when creating this algorithm. So it was really inspired by academia in multiple ways, by computer science concepts, and also by this concept of citing other authors and that affecting the reputation, or in this case, the page rank value. So the higher page rank value is, the higher you are ranking. And yeah, you have links that are coming to your web page, which are inbound links, and then you have outbound links that are going out from the uh, from the from the to other web pages. Okay, so some practical concepts in SEO, how we actually do it. We do keyword research. So that's if you look at how to do SEO, how to learn SEO, the principle of SEO, they always mention keyword research, right? So that's the starting point. Keyword research means that, okay, what are the relevant keywords for our business that make sense? So how do we choose these? There are many criteria, but basically that goes back into the idea of how to think about SEO, right? We need to understand user behavior and what terms people use when searching for products and services in our industry. So we start by noting them down. We are listing them. Everything we can come up, we are listing them. That's usually the first step. Then we start to collect data. We start to collect data from Google Trends, from Google Ads Keyword Planner, about the volume and competition of different keywords, so that we get an understanding of how much each keyword has search volume, and then how difficult it is to achieve top position. So because eventually we need to have some kind of internal ranking on keywords that we consider are most valuable ones, because then we put more effort into optimizing those pages on our domain and also creating content related to those keywords. So this is the traditional approach to SEO. And yeah, we need to understand the search intent. So intent is very important. Roughly speaking, we can distinguish between two different intents, so informational intent and commercial intent. So informational means something like how to change the oil in the car. So this is just, I want instructions, right? So I'm looking for information. Whereas commercial would be something like well, oil for Opel Astra. I happen to have an Opel Astra which has oil leak problems. So then I know, okay, this person is looking to buy oil for Opel Astra, right? They need that oil. So the intent is commercial. So this plays a role in what you are trying to do with your search engine optimization. And generally speaking, commercial keywords have more competition, but they're also more valuable, right? Because they're closer to the purchase. Whereas sometimes informational searches are people are trying to find, sometimes they have no commercial motive at all, but sometimes they might be doing research that leads into a purchase. So that's why also some of the informational terms are relevant for possibly relevant or possibly have business value as well. So both of these types could be selected. And then also search potential. So high versus low. Is this a search term that is used like 10 times per year, or is it something that's used every day 100 times? So like there's there can be big scale differences in terms of search potential. So if you would have information versus commercial and search potential high versus low, you could create like a 2x2 matrix and kind of categorize your keywords, and then that could give some structure. So but there are other ways of doing it as well, but the point is that you need to have some kind of criteria to prioritize the keywords so that you can select the most important ones. And then we have this long tail strategy, which is often mentioned, and it's related to the fact that so in any given industry, there are usually the very profitable keywords. Actually, let's say not profitable, but the very high value keywords that are very strongly associated with purchase motivation, right? So for example, in gift business, you have gift cards, buy gift card. So that's about as close as the purchase you can get, right? So probably people coming through that keyword will end up buying a gift card. So there's a very high probability to that. But the problem is here that, again, it's highly competitive. So it might not be profitable because maybe we cannot get the top rankings no matter how much we put effort into it. So the idea is that this long tail strategy is that we have a lot of variations of terms, and some of them can be very specific, like cheap gift cards in Helsinki, Alepa. Again, that's more specific already. So if you are creating a specific landing page for that, or you're otherwise optimizing for that term, then your competition will be less. But the thing is that there are a lot of now variations of creating those niche combinations. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. And then collectively such landing page or search, it's used so seldom that this one page that you create doesn't get much traffic, right? So that's why the long tail strategy is that you have to create hundreds of such combinations or even thousands. And then collectively, those thousands, all of them get maybe a few visitors per month or even more rarely. But collectively, when you calculate all together, that's thousands of visitors that you get through this strategy. So that's the long tail strategy that we might need to use because everyone knows the most important keywords, and therefore it's very hard to gain the top positions with those. Then link building is difficult. Link building is somewhat nowadays it could be associated with influencer marketing. So but there's a lot of challenge in link building because even with influencer marketing, when they link to you, those links from social media platforms are often so-called no-follow links. So no-follow means that it has this parameter called no-follow. It's in the link, it's in the HTML. So if you look at actually the source code of TikTok or Instagram, probably the links that you see there have a no-follow attribute, and that is trying to tell to the search engine that don't consider this as a valuable link that should boost anyone's search ranking, which means that basically don't follow this link. So this link building is always a difficult part of SEO in practice. In practice, the SEO work is a lot about learning and monitoring the industry. So following blogs like Search Engine Land and also following SEO professionals and specialists on LinkedIn, and also monitoring what Google publishes news in its blog and in its technical releases section. So Google gives some information about updates in its ranking algorithm. It sort of communicates strategically. So it tells you it tells you when it wants you to behave in a certain way, right? So when Google, for example, observed maybe around 8 years ago that the devices are moving from desktop and laptop computer to mobile computers, right? So this was a huge change in shift in traffic because initially nobody was using mobile phones for website. Then the devices got a little bit better and people started to browse the web like early adopters. But then it really went into mainstream with Apple iPhone, basically back in 2007. So after that, web became accessible to mobile devices, and then nowadays in 2024 all of you guys are browsing the web using mobile phones. So the mobile traffic's proportion of all the website traffic has gone from 0 to something like now it's majority, right? So then at some point Google started to communicate that okay, webmasters need to make sure that the design is mobile device friendly. So what does Google do to make that happen? Because Google observes that a lot of their traffic is now going to web pages that are not optimized. So they are noticing a drop in their user experience. So Google makes it a ranking factor. So this is the sure way of making Google says jump, everyone will jump, because if they don't make their websites mobile friendly, now they're according to the ranking factor, um, their score will be lowered, and then their traffic will tank, and they will lose out on revenue. So this is an example of, okay, Google communicates with the industry and it shares strategically information about its algorithm and about its changes because it wants to drive your behavior. And whether you like it or not, as a search engine optimizer, you need to be actively monitoring and accommodating Google's requests. And again, those requests are not evil because in this case of mobile friendliness, for example, Google is trying to improve the overall search experience. So it makes total sense again that you do this such changes to the website and sort of go along with it. So earlier, excuse me, earlier I mentioned this page rank, and I explained the idea briefly. So PageRank was the initial idea, the intuition behind Google. But PageRank is not the only algorithm or only factor that Google considers in its ranking. We don't know how many search ranking factors there are. There are hundreds of them, probably. And we don't know exactly what they are. And also we don't know exactly how much weight or influence each factor has in the ranking decision. So these are all very carefully kept trade secrets that even very few people in Google know about, for obvious reasons, because if the formula of Google would get out, then it would cause, again, maybe massive gaming and manipulation of the system, because people would just try to create, create mimicking of those factors, and that's not what Google wants to do. But here are some examples that are very basic ideas of what could be ranking factors. So keyword use, anchor text use, again, this global link popularity related to page rank, how old the site is. Maybe older sites are more trustworthy because they have been around for a while. How much the page is internally linking to a given page, like if all the pages within a domain are linking to one page, then maybe that is the most important page of that domain. Topical relevance, especially now with a lot of the research Google is doing is as for the past years. For example, the transformers are based on this kind of semantic understanding and computing semantic similarity between texts. So this topical relevance and understanding how different content matches search intent is very big driver of how Google operates, and so on. So there are a lot of potential ones, and yeah, studying this, what could be search factors is very important, because we want to try and understand what potentially drives Google's behavior. But at the same time, we have to be cautious, because a lot of the information that SEO specialists sometimes spread is not validated by Google, and sometimes it's rumors. Like I mentioned earlier, these social signals. It was such a big thing, and everyone in the SEO community was talking about it, but it turned out to be nothing, right? And then everyone just forgot about it as quickly as they. So it's a human behavior, right? So we know the basics of this SEO thing, but we always want to find new. So someone comes up with a new idea, and then others are, oh yeah, that makes sense. Maybe that's how Google works, and then it becomes a thing. And then, all of a sudden it's like snowball, and everyone is talking about that. And then people at Google might be thinking, oh, what are they doing? Like we are not even talking about those things, so they're just inventing stuff. So sometimes it's called a folk theory. So there might be these folk theories spreading around in SEO community about Google's behavior, and it affects actually everything. Marketers might speculate on how algorithm works. Like there's a lot of speculation about how LinkedIn's algorithm is work. I cannot leave links there because it's dropping my visibility and stuff like that, but it's never validated by LinkedIn. So it just becomes something that a person claims to have noticed and then others are spreading it and so on. So some of these folk theories are very unreliable. So primarily follow Google's documentation. Google has, I've linked it at the end of this presentation. Google has a uh, website or a section for search engine optimizers. So you read that and you are pretty much aligned with what Google thinks you should do. And that's basically uh, the essentials you should be following. So beware of like this information coming from in unofficial parties. It might not be correct. And then in general, Google's relationship to search engine optimizers is somewhat tricky, right? Because in the first, initially Google sort of viewed SEO as, hacking or, trying to game its system, because that's what SEO people were trying to do. They were trying to sort of reverse engineer Google, and just they used a lot of unethical approaches. Just if they thought keywords are more important, they just add more keywords blindly, and it's called this black hat strategies. So uh, so then that caused Google to be cautious, but at the same time, it really affected Google in the way that Google started to communicate more with the optimization community and sharing these best practices. Like I mentioned, Google now has section on, or has had for more than 10 years. And it's sharing its content guidelines and information that you should know, and principles that you should follow. So it's sort of, that is the relationship. There is a relationship, and Google acknowledges that search engine optimization exists, is a valid domain, and is something that people do regardless of Google liking it or not. So they now are opting for driving it towards this white hat direction, which is following ethical rules and being in compliance with Google's understanding of how you should make the website more accessible for search engines. And also how you create, Google calls it helpful content. So helpful content is again in line with user experience. So if you have a lot of keywords, but they are helpful for the user, then that's okay. But if your keywords are just there to fool the search engine, that's not okay. So, I mean, sometimes the line is a little bit blurry, and that's why you have this gray hat SEO, which is somewhere in between. That basically, once we have complied with Google and we have done the basics, we still want better results. So our manager is coming to us and say, okay, you did what Google is saying, but I want 10% more traffic from organic search. So then, okay, what do? I cannot tell him that, okay, we already did what Google wanted, so we cannot do anything anymore. I will get fired, right? So this gray hat is somewhat, now we try to still outsmart Google. We still try to gain a competitive advantage. So we might do more automatic content creation. We might do more landing pages. Uh, we might we might go at some border line of what is kind of like acceptable in terms of how many keywords we are putting there and so on, but we try to do it without harming the user experience. That's the key tenet in this gray hat approach. Because if we harm the user experience, then we go into this black hat region, and then we are too far. And like I said, if Google considers you to do black hat strategies, they have automatic detection mechanisms, so then they might lower your rankings or even drop you from the index altogether. So But again, common sense, apply common sense. Is this good for user experience? If it is, or at least it's not harming user experience, let's do it. If it is, okay, this is really something we shouldn't do, then don't do it. That's kind of following common sense takes you pretty far. And this is indeed cat and mouse game. So Google is making a lot of changes to its algorithm. It can make small changes and big changes. The small changes it might not communicate about. The bigger changes it usually communicates about, and it gives names to them. Like one from the past years long ago was called Penguin Update, and there's Pandas Update, and so on. So it's sharing those information. So it's good to track them. Some like fallacies about SEO, that SEO is free. It's not. I already mentioned, and this concept is problematic for beginners and smaller companies. Bigger and medium-sized companies already understand nowadays that you need to have SEO expertise, and you either hire a specialized agency for it, or then you hire in-house sales specialists. So they understand it, but still there might be some smaller companies that think it's free and easy to do. So that's definitely not true. There's a need for expertise, a lot of working hours and effort into it, and they of course have a cost. So you need to have it's just that you do something is not bring your results. You need to put a lot of effort into making the SEO work. It's a very labor intensive effort. Even I would say probably much more than advertising. Advertising requires less labor than SEO, I would say. And it requires different types of labor as well, copywriting and technical labor, IT help, and thinking. It requires a lot of thinking in creating strategy and doing research and then monitoring the results and adjusting. So it's a lot. Also, often it's said that SEO takes months to show results, and generally this is correct, because it takes time for Google to respond to changes, but there is a notable exception when there are new keywords and new topics. So something, imagine like, for example, in the maybe 10 years ago, there was this stand-up paddling. So it was invented. I don't know if it was 10 years ago, but back then it became at least a thing. And so there's almost no content about the SUP. So then when you create a web page, you have much less competition and you can see results much quicker. So when you see new trends emerging as an SEO, if it's related to your industry, you should quickly create content around it, because that's the time where you can get quickly to the top of the rankings, because people come up with new words and concepts that didn't exist, right? So there cannot be any pre-existing content on them. So this is generally the thing. Ranking with new and old terms is very different. So if you have established term, it might be very high to difficult to rank high, but with new concepts that didn't exist, it's relatively easy, or at least easier. Google is the only search engine that matters. We talk a lot about Google, but in fact, in other countries, yes, in China they have Baidu, in Russia they have Yandex, and possibly in some other countries as well. A major proportion of the world is also using other search engines. There are also alternatives in the Western world, which are Bing and DuckDuckGo, and but in the Western world, generally, Google is the one, the dominant. We call it natural monopoly for more than, maybe for around 20 years already. Natural monopoly, which is a long time. Natural monopoly because there's no there's no legislation that prevents competition. So Google is just naturally so good that it has maintained like above 80% market share in most Western countries, which is remarkable for like something like 20 years. It's absolutely crazy how, and in a fast moving technology field, nobody has outsmarted, because the search engines before Google were maybe popular for 2 years and then they were outsmarted by others. And then after game Google, nobody has been able to outsmart Google. It's like quite crazy. But the second aspect to this idea that there are other search engines is that basically everything that has search is a search engine. So you can think of Spotify, you're searching for songs. You can think of Amazon, you're searching for products. Every time there's a search bar, we can think of search engine optimization, because nowadays you have indeed ASO, Amazon search optimization, and you have Spotify search optimization, right? Because if you can get your music high on Spotify when people are searching for lo-fi or whatever, you know, type of genre, you can get millions of and millions of minutes of listening hour, and it becomes hugely beneficial to you. You can make a living and even become rich with producing music to Spotify. And the same for YouTube, by the way. If you are ranking high in YouTube, so you have YouTube search optimization as well. So those have little bit their own peculiarities, of course. So you need to understand always the platform and what are the techniques and tactics that are at your disposal to try and push your popularity higher in the search. But yeah, it's not only Google that is the context for search engine optimization, but for web search, Google is the dominant player in most parts of the Western world, at least. So why is Google the best? I don't actually know, but they have been able to continuously innovate. Results are fast, the user experience is good. So, I mean, it just works. And I guess if we try to understand it deeper in what Google is doing, it's first of all hiring always the best engineers. It's paying them a lot of money. It has always, as I mentioned, it started kind of from academia, from PhD research, but Google has always kept its connection with academic community. So a lot of Google people are doing research and they're presenting in top computer science research, the top venues about recommender systems, about machine learning. So they're actively collaborating and really pushing the theory and state of the art in computer science. So they're both giving back, they're making some code publicly available, open source, but they're also drawing a lot from top research in computer science. So if a new algorithm comes out and Google didn't invent it, there is someone at Google who knows how to make use of that in their products. So yeah, it's just a massive scale of smart people that are doing research and also engineering hugely valuable in actually implementing it. So Google's engineers are the best in the world. And yeah, they have created a great company culture. I've visited Google's headquarters in Dublin. And yeah, it's like you can live there because they have their own massagers. They have, of course, all the benefits, free food, free cafe, multiple cafes at every level of the building. You can sleep there, nap there, you can shower there, you can eat at any time of the day, and great food. And yeah, it's just a lovely place to be in. So these kind of success factors, I think, drive a lot of how they are able to keep good people. And then network effects. So in the platform course, Valid will educate you more about the network effects, but it just means that once a company has established a very strong position, it's hard for the rivals to push it out. So there needs to be some kind of trend, that kind of like big shift to knock Google down from its throne, and thus far we didn't see it. And also this question, why is Google? I've done digital marketing since 2009. So Google has always been the best channel in terms of return on investment. And why is that? And I have like a theory on it, but well, it's not my theory, but it's just a common theory of supply and demand, right? And it's that when people are searching at Google, they are directly sharing their need, and that's the demand. And then Google simply finds the suitable results from its index of web pages and also ads, and that's the supply. So that's basically it. There is demand now because people are looking for products and services, and oh, Google has all the pages that are providing products and services in that field. Just showing them, so I immediately find the solution. It's not very complex, right? That's the easiest thing about markets that is taught to people, supply and demand. But Google is implementing that at scale. So it's a very efficient marketplace. That's why it works. So if you compare it to something that happens in Facebook, for example, or happens when you're scrolling a news website, what is your task? You're probably interested in your friends' updates in the case of social media, and in the case of news website, you want to read the news story. So all of a sudden comes a pop-up blocking your view. You feel annoyed. You're not in the mode of finding a product. You don't care about the shoes because you're not looking for them, right? So this is fundamentally different, because traditional marketing and advertising is based on distracting people. It's obtrusive. We try to bother people and have all these bells and whistles. So pay attention, pay attention. But in Google, the user's task is to look at the ads. So they actively want to look at the ads or the organic search results in the case of optimization. So that's why it is always in my every business case I've seen when we discuss digital marketing, Google is outperforming all other channels. Maybe there are fringe cases where it doesn't happen, where people don't search for the products or services. That might be an exception, but every time there is search for existing, product categories, and then Google does better. So I have this theory about it called the IADA model. So traditional marketing, we have this IDA model, which is attention, interest, desire, action. And that means we need to first get the attention, right? So the IADA model is different because people already have the interest, right? So they go to Google, and then over there, we need to get their attention as search engine optimizers or search engine marketers. And then it follows the same action. And you can think of it like this, in the IDA model, the person is seeing something, and for example, in Facebook, and then, okay, it seems interesting, and then you click and they're curious to learn more. But in the IADA model, they already have a need, and they go to the Google, and then they click, they have intent, and they're not curious to learn, they're curious to act. And that would be the idea that this Google follows the IADA model, and that's why it's more likely to convert. And that's why it's performing always better when you look at the results. So now we have new contenders, TikTok and ChatGPT especially, so generative AI. And the real question is that is it changing search behavior drastically so that, for example, search engine optimization would fundamentally change? So my argument or conjecture here is that everything depends on the first step. So if people continue going to it's the default, default channel, default behavior. If the default behavior is no longer going to Google, but going to TikTok, then Google is losing. So that's why Google's very scared about TikTok. That's why actually there's a very strong political drive, and the whole, you could say, United States is worried about TikTok because it's part of the power play. TikTok is a Chinese company, and it's first time in history where Google's monopoly on information retrieval has been challenged, because now there are some indications and some preliminary studies that say that Generation Z is using TikTok as their preferred search engine over Google. So this is absolutely worrisome for not only for Google but for the US, because Google is a major gatekeeper to information. And now if the gatekeeper to information becomes a Chinese company whose algorithms the US has no control over, then that is a problem. And so this is part of the bigger now, in fact, political power play as well, the things between TikTok and why it's now being prohibited in some countries and restricted and so on. So, but we don't know yet. Still, Google is going strong. Google's sales or revenue was again growing and broke records. So thus far, this TikTok has not tilted the game drastically. And also the same for ChatGPT. So this idea that we are no longer using Google because we can just chat with ChatGPT and we find the information there. And this, again, this type of behavior has increased. So probably you, as students, you are doing now some things where you previously went to Google. I'm doing it when I had definitions. I previously went to Google. Now sometimes I go to ChatGPT and I ask it to define. So Google has lost some searches from me already, but so far it has not damaged the revenue, at least because there hasn't been this chat commerce yet realized, right? Because I still need to use some kind of search to find products, right? I cannot buy them through ChatGPT, and it doesn't have a very good connection to real-time data. Google has connection because it's it's created technical specifications for product feeds. So a lot of companies are giving their information about products to Google, including some of the e-commerce clients I'm consulting. They're giving, Google knows all their products. They, in the feed there is linked to the picture, title, price, all the structured data, product description, everything is structured format, so it's very easy for Google to read. So Google should actually, or could build this conversational commerce bot, but it hasn't yet. And if someone is able to build that and sort of surpass Google, then it might be more convenient to do your purchases directly in a conversational format rather than browsing web pages. And therefore, Google would no longer be the gatekeeper to the web pages if the purchase behavior drastically changes. So that's speculation for now, because still these systems are not interlinked to the real-time products, and you cannot also pay through ChatGPT. But this, technically, it's possible. There's no technical barrier to it. It's just that this industry hasn't shifted to that direction, at least yet. However, what is a big challenge when we talk about generative AI is the mediocre content. So there's a lot of now with AI generated content, it's becoming harder for Google to distinguish that, and content has exploded because now the cost of creating content is minuscule. It's so negligibly small. So this poses a big, so before we had the 3 million candidate pages to rank, so now we have 30 million and 27 million of them are created by AI, and they are more fluent text than created by human. So it's a huge problem for the ranking to deal with. And it can cause a big disruption. And at the same time, Google is in itself now doing this, which was called AI overview or search generative AI. And it means that they are testing this new user experience where instead of showing the content from web pages, they are rewriting the content using generative AI. It has not gone well. There are a lot of cases of user experience not working. Their AI generating some bogus content, even harmful content to users. But aside from the technical side, I'm personally worried about it not being making business sense because Google, as I mentioned earlier, it's a major source of traffic and revenue for companies. But now if it starts to take companies' content and rewriting it and not giving them any traffic, it's actually making itself less important for a lot of stakeholders. And this cannot be good in the long run. So it seems to me that this is a challenging strategic direction. And also, of course, when Google becomes from information organizer to now information creator, its role would actually shift, and now its mission will change. So now it's no longer giving access to information, it's creating information, and that has very big problems or challenges in terms of accuracy and also liabilities. So if it gives wrong information and somebody does something and bad things happen, then Google might be liable because it gave this information. But yeah, and Google has been very strong on user experience, the speed, the accuracy. So why fix something that isn't broken? To me, I haven't seen any compelling value proposition from generative AI SERPs by Google. To me, I just cannot see the value. But anyway, they are working on it, and somewhat they are so worried about ChatGPT that they're now doing all kinds of things that sometimes appear a little bit panicking. Then, yeah, let's a little bit about purchase behavior. There's this graph here which shows that on what stages of a purchase journey people would use search engine. This is a little bit old study, but it's still, I think, uh, well, it's probably still corresponding to the factual situation at the moment. So at purchase level, people use it a lot, at decision level, a lot, at research level, a lot. So this is basically the thing I was talking about. So it's used a lot in here in closer to purchase, and also actually it's used a lot in all of the stages of the purchase decision process. It's not used a lot in awareness. So this is how we usually categorize channels. So Facebook, for example, social media for exploration and discovery when people don't have an existing need. But as soon as they have existing need, they're not going to Facebook, at least traditionally, but they're going to Google and they start to do investigation. So that's the huge value that Google has. But if we have a strong brand, then people would go directly to the brand's website. So they might go directly to Amazon.com instead of Google. So this is an interesting dynamic here in the sense that if you are building a very strong brand, you are making yourself potentially less dependent on Google. And if on the other hand, you have a weak brand that people are directly searching, and that might make you more dependent on intermediaries like Google. And the twist here, though, is that even though you have Amazon or something, whatever, then we have this natural search behavior of people that you type the Amazon on the browser. You want to go to Amazon.com, you just type Amazon. So Chrome puts you directly to Google search engine result. And you click on Amazon's sponsored result. Google gets money. Google gets money, even though you could have typed Amazon.com, but millions and millions of people just typed Amazon and they go to Google's page without actually needing to go, just because they're too lazy to type the .com. So every time that happens, Google makes some money, and in aggregate they make millions of that. So now you understand why they developed the Chrome, because if we had a different browser, they might not put Google there as the search engine, right? So Microsoft puts Bing there. So Bing gets now the money. So Google anticipates this and they develop their own browser so that now they are controlling also the browser market, and they are the default search engine there. And you can technically change the search engine, because this was demanded by the court of law, that people have the option. But the default is Google, and most people don't touch the default options. So in fact, they keep on using Google. So Google generates traffic on it. Another aspect on search behavior which is interesting, is this linearity. So earlier we were talking about IDA and IADA models. And this is how we marketers usually think about the purchase process, that it's very linear, that we do search and we get some results and we go to the website and we make conversion. And technically that's what's happening. But what's happening is a lot of comparisons in between. So this I wanted to mention, because this non-linearity of search behavior is something that Google identified about 20 years later, compared to these Hodges, which articulated it back in 2003. But now Google is talking about um, this fact, because it's important for Google to try and understand this non-linearity, to try and predict what is the intent of the person, because that matters. That's information that Google can monetize and use in its ranking. So that's why this kind of non-linearity is very it's important to know about this, uh, because these touch points eventually are very crucial in how people make the decisions, through this comparative complex process, but also in how search engines do the ranking. And then for if you are involved in copywriting or content creation, write the content in such a way that it's in people's words. So it's using the words that people are using when searching. So nothing over complex about using concepts that are very jargon and sound very fancy. The problem there is that if you are using fancy words and people are not using those words when searching, then your writing is not search engine friendly, right? Because you want to be mirroring the language that people use when they are searching. Let me see here. We only have a couple of minutes, so I'll skip the rest of these slides. If you want to learn more, I recommend, because this is a topic where you can go very deep into different stuff. So here are ideas for you to continue learning if you are interested in SEO. So go into these EAT principles, learn what they are. It's very important currently. Learn about core web vitals, what they are. It's a little bit technical, but conceptually it's easy to understand, and there are easy articles for that. Here are tools if you want to try. They have trial versions, pretty much all of them, or then they are free. So Screaming Frog is for like technical analysis of any website. SEMrush I already mentioned for keyword research and tracking. Google Search Console, if you have a website, you can install this and it's free to use. PageSpeed Insights, also free to use. And then concepts to learn about navigability. We talked about it a bit, but the concepts like links, anchor text, breadcrumbs, page map, and indexing, how they work, important to know. Also structured data. Google is increasingly using structured data already for maybe 10 years. So it's important for marketers to understand what structured data is and how we can make use of it. For example, a lot of it it's very useful for e-commerce. Like I mentioned, the example of product feeds. So the product feeds are something that no e-commerce site can anymore do marketing without. So basically, we need to understand what those specifications are and how to work with IT to improve our feeds and make sure they are compliant with Google's requirements. Local search and Google Maps. So, and in general about learning about search personalization can be helpful. Then also a couple of ways of thinking. So every year you hear this term for the past 10 years, SEO is dead. So you keep hearing it, but you remember from your weekly task, what was one of the top skills? SEO seemed to pop up often, right? So for the past 10 years, I keep reading that SEO is dead, but it never is. So just ignore that and keep the basics in mind. The basics of SEO still are living and doing well. And also remember this idea that Google is not the only search engine. So I mentioned Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, TikTok. A lot of the principles about search that you learn from Google and kind of the ways of thinking about search and optimization, those apply also to these other platforms that are search engines. And for example, understanding user intent, the keywords and so on, it's quite universally applicable. So search engine optimization is relevant also in social media and e-commerce platforms, and not only in search platforms. And finally, here are some resources. There have been some leaks. This year, interestingly, there was a search documentation leak, which was the biggest news in SEO community this year. So here's a link, you can read more about it. Some insights into how Google ranks, the ranking factors. Last year, there was a Yandex search factor leak. So again, read about it. The search engine land blog is really good. And then, as I mentioned, this Google SEO fundamentals. So get information from Google firsthand, because that is the most reliable source of information that you can get when it comes to doing SEO properly. Okay, that's it. And we are now over time. So no time for questions, but I'll see you guys on Friday, and thanks for attending.